Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to MHC with Lyte. And today, we're looking for an ideal configuration of bedrock. We're at 268 east, so we've gone maybe 1600 blocks in the overworld. And we'll continue going in this general direction looking for the bedrock configuration we want. Because if we don't find it relatively quickly, we might need to change our plans. Okay, let's check this area out. So, head is at 125. So we would place our piston here. But how are we going to power it? Seems like it might be time for a lever. Let's clear some of this junk out of here. Okay, so, pow, get ourselves a stick and a lever. Aha! Victory is mine. So we take our cobble, put it on top, put our rail on there, that on there, which means we should now have at least a relatively clear shot somehow. At breaking the rails. So let's put this here. If we get far enough back. Nope, still hitting the minecart. And we've got bedrock behind us, so that's not going to help at all. Maybe if this were a half slab. Really? I was looking clearly at those rails. What else can we do? Ooh. Maybe if it's facing the other direction. Do I have... No, it's over there. Fine, I'll make another one. Okay, so let's try that. Now the minecart will be facing the other way. Still don't seem to be able to target it. Why can't I target the rails? This is incredibly strange because I've done this in this version. Well, I suppose we can try it a different way. Come on, get square. It should be good enough. This is not the way you're supposed to do it, but it should still work. There we are. Now we should, at least in theory, be able to right-click, shift, jump, jump, jump. Et voila! We are in the magical wonderland that is the roof. We want to head east towards these shrooms. So that took us about 5 minutes. We've got 15 more minutes of this episode. My goal is to get to 1,600 blocks, so I'm going to run about 2,000 blocks in this direction, build myself a portal, and go back to the overworld. Now that's not going to take the rest of the series to do. Let's make sure we've got our bearings. And since mushrooms do grow on the roof, we're not going to run out of food. Thank goodness. So we're going to come over here, grab these brown mushrooms, and we'll be set for food for pretty much ever. We'll set down our crafting bench such that we can make the bowls. And then it'll pretty much just be a nice leisurely stroll. Oh, of course I left the crafting bench. What would it be if it weren't me making yet another crafting bench? And I only really want one bowl at a time because, well, they take up a lot of space. And mushroom stew is not an emergency food for me. This is not something I'm going to eat when I'm in trouble. I'm going to eat it when I've got time to stop and make some soup. So, east. And we want to go towards 0 because right now we're 800 blocks away from the axis, which is not so good. And then we'll get on that 0 axis, we'll take a nice stroll, we'll have a little chat. And leave all those other suckers in our dust. No, I mean, I'm not really in this to beat everybody else. I'm in this to beat my prediction. So really, if I get to my 16,000 blocks, I'll be happy. And that'll be good enough for me. And for me to do the next several episodes just running on the top of the nether, that would be ridiculous. I mean, this episode is going to be boring enough as it is. The only way that I would be able to get away with more than an episode and a half of this is if, for some reason, people send in a bunch of questions and I could do some sort of question and answer sort of session. But I'm not sure I've got enough subscribers for that to be a realistic plan. So every now and then I might stop and collect some more mushrooms, but for the most part, this is just going to be me heading in this general direction, a couple of thousand blocks. Now, I'm fairly certain you can get about 2,000 blocks in one episode. That's what people were doing on the surface. So if I do that here, that'll be like doing that for 8 episodes because of the spatial compression stuff that goes on between the nether and the overworld. And we stop, and we have ourselves a snack. And we move on. Now, I suppose it might be more efficient if I made it all at once, but I don't necessarily have the room in my inventory for that. And if we happen to run into a patch of mushrooms in our path, like not slightly off the path, then we'll harvest them, because they're right there, and we might need them. Like those, they're off the path. We've still got 10 minutes. We might run into a better set of them. Now, I'm not going to do the whole jumping thing because then we'll consume lots of food really fast. And because this entire place is made of bedrock, absolutely nothing can spawn up here. That gas that you're hearing, he's not a problem for us because he's not up here. He's down underneath. That's why it's so great to build like the Pigman Golden XP farms up here, because you put anything down, that's the only place things are going to spawn up here. If you go up such that the roof is about 128 away from you, that's the only place at all that's going to spawn anything. You don't need to slab things, you don't need to light things up. It's pretty awesome. Now, Izuma on the Hermitcraft server had a thing about no torches. I'm not entirely certain what that's about. It might be part of the current spawning mechanic. It might be part of a legacy mechanic that might have been updated in 1.8. I'm not entirely certain. I don't know all of the details of some of the values on the debug screen. And I believe one of those values went away. So if you look on this screen, there used to be an LC number that I know was really important when King Happy was building the Enderman farm. That was a crucial number, and it was why he built it all the way at the bottom of the end and only built it a certain height. That it maximized what areas were checked for spawning. Now, I don't see that number anymore. It might be that they don't show it to us. It might be that it was deprecated. It might not be a thing anymore. I don't know. So, it's only 11 minutes in. We're approaching the 2,000 block mark. But this episode was only ever meant to be traveling in the Nether. I'm not necessarily prepared for going back to the overworld at night suddenly. I don't think I want to do that. So I'm just going to keep running. And I won't worry about wasting time because I've already passed my goal. So if I see a good patch of mushrooms, I'm going to harvest them. Because then I'll be set for food on the overworld journey as well. And it'll be good to know just how far you can make it unimpeded in the Nether in just one episode. I mean, as a scientist, I want to know that. Because then when designing something on a server, you can know how far apart things could reasonably be. Because this is just me running. If you had ice tracks, if you had minecart tracks, you'd be going a lot faster. If, heaven forbid, you had a horse, and a good horse, mind you, just imagine how far you could get. If, in just one 20-minute episode, I made it 16,000 blocks. Now, if I wanted to just completely game the system and completely obliterate the competition, I could just stay up here and keep running to the east the entire time, and then make it... How many episodes do we have left? 3 or 4? Make it 50,000 blocks out. But that's just a bit ridiculous. It's not entertaining. It's not sporting. There is nothing up here that can kill me. I'm never going to run out of food. Theoretically, if someone made it up here sooner than I did, they'd have been able to make it farther. So, I'm not sure if it was Skywise or who it was that was tunneling up near the roof. If they had made it here before me, because he was on the roof. Like, in the ceiling, not on the roof. He was in the ceiling well before I got here. So, if he did this trick, he could have been just gone before anybody could do anything. We're 31 off. Let's re-angle ourselves back this way a bit. How many brown mushrooms do we have? 30. We're good on those. We'll pick up the red ones. Now, some of you might be a little unnerved by the tortoise and the hare nature of this sort of thing, where I just rested for a long time, then made a huge spurt, and then I'm going to rest again. Well, I'm not going to rest quite as much after this, because I won't need to do the resource gathering. It'll be just walking and running and maybe trying to get a horse or something. Oh, I don't have a saddle. But it doesn't set a good example for the children. Slow and steady wins the race. Well, it also sends the bad message of cheaters never prosper, because this is kind of cheating. As much as everyone knows that you can get on the roof of the Nether, it's still a bit of an exploit. You're really probably not supposed to get up here. But then again, Mojang has not locked it down. It's been this way for a while. Long while. And if I had been ridiculously resourceful, I could have brought some dark oak trees with me and broken the bedrock to go back down. As a matter of fact, there's ways of going back down that don't use the trees. If you knew where one of those thin parts of the bedrock happened to be, you could put a boat on it and sink right through. So if you had one of those things to get up here, you could have a boat that takes you back down if you didn't want to use the dark oak trick to break the bedrock back down. So let's see how far we've got. Oof, we've passed 3,000. I mean, with the amount of time we got left, we got 3 more minutes. I didn't give you back that minute last episode, so I will do my best to give back the minute this episode, because we're in day 4. So once it crosses to day 5, I think should be the end of this episode, because you start on day 0. Mushroom stew. Mushroom stew. Okay, let's get going. So if we get to 4,000, I mean, that would double my prediction. And that's just from one episode of following my plan that I had from the beginning. Yeah. That seems a little overpowered. So, if I'm thoroughly disqualified for this, I totally understand. And it's entirely possible I could die the moment I go through that portal. Now, granted, it would probably take more than a moment for me to die. But still. It's possible I could die before the end of the series and be thoroughly disqualified. Because I don't know if it's the farthest you get before you die, or the farthest you are on the final episode. That's not an official question. You don't need to make that ruling. But it's an interesting thing to think about. Come on, keep running. Okay, so we're at 1836. So let's check our coordinates. Yeah, we didn't quite make it to 4,000, but it's time to go back to the overworld. Let's grab obsidian. 1, 2, 3, 1. And now we can fall down. Ouch. Book. And a 1. And a 2. And a 3. 1, 2. Flint and steel. And now we're never going to be able to come back to this portal. So if we wanted to do another Nether run, we'd have to get the resources all over again. Well, we'd at least need to make more obsidian. Which, if we find surface lava, we might just do. So that promise of giving the minute back doesn't seem to be going too well, because we got 30 seconds left, and we'll be on the surface in a second. Now it's loading the terrain, and here we are in a cave with some gravel falling on us. So unfortunately, we're not on the surface as we had hoped, which is mighty weird. But that's all the time I've got for this episode, so I will see you in the next episode of MHC with Lyte at 29,875.